is going on Inside Out? How are we doing this evening? That is what I love to hear. Well, hey, my name is Audrey, and whether it is your first time here or you've been coming for a while or you're tuning in online, I just want to welcome you personally to Inside Out because you guys picked the perfect Sunday to be here. We've got a super awesome game, one of my favorites, and then I've got a couple quick announcements, and then we have a surprise for you guys because Jordan Geist will be up here for part 2 of our series, Forward. But like I said, we have a super awesome game to start off with, so I'm going to need 4 volunteers to come on up here and accept this challenge. Benny, you got it? Any more volunteers? You want to come on up? Someone just said my name. Come on up. Awesome. Yes, this is 4. This is perfect. No running, no running. Awesome. Can I get your guys' name? You want to stand over here? Can I get your guys' name and your small group?
London and Jen and Summer.
My name is Bennett, Josh and Michael.
Kat and I forgot the names, but it's okay.
My name is Matt and Josh and Michael.
Awesome. Make some noise if someone from your small group is up here. Wow, Josh and Michaels is the only one representing. That's okay. Well, this is one of my favorite games, and it is called the 5-second rule. And so what's going to happen is we're going to go down individually, and there's going to be a category on the screen. And you guys are going to have 5 seconds to list 3 things in these categories. And if you can do it, then you're safe. You move on to the next round. But if you can't, then you unfortunately have to take a seat. Does everyone understand what's happening? All right, who would like to go first? Bennett, I think you got it. Oh, all right, we'll start down here. We'll just go straight down the line. Let's see our first category. Vegetables.
Carrot. Oh my gosh, lettuce, spinach.
You're safe. All right, let's look at our next round. Cereal.
Cinnamon Toast Crunch, Cocoa Puffs, and
I'm sorry. Chex Mix is not a cereal. Faith. Thank you so much for playing. You can go ahead and take a seat. I'm sorry. Let's take a look at our next topic. Chip flavors.
Spicy, Cool Ranch, and cheddar. It says flavors.
That's definitely not what I was thinking, but yeah, it's okay. I'll accept it. I'll accept it.
It says
All right.
flavors.
Okay, we get it. Next category. Celebrities.
oh my god, Jason Derulo, Harry Styles, and fuck.
All right, well, we've got our final 2. And I would just like to say that you guys are playing for a Dairy Queen gift card. So why don't you guys come on up and take a step forward. We're going to come back over here. Let's go to our next round. Shoe brands.
Adidas, Nike, Puma.
Well, okay. Next category, Benny, you got it? Sodas.
Sprite, Coke, Dr. Pepper.
All right, this is getting intense. Make some well, you guys are from the same small group, so I guess just make some noise for who you guys want to win. Let's make some noise if we think Bennett's gonna win. Let's make some noise if we think Matt's gonna win. That was pretty even. All right, let's look at the next one. Aquatic animals.
Fish, whale, eel.
Okay. Fish, whale, eel. That's good. Yeah, he's got it. Okay, you're next. Ready? Occupations.
Chick-fil-A, Dairy Queen, and Freddy's Worker. Whatever. Hey, I said worker. Worker. I said worker.
All right. I think I'll. All right, let's take a look at our next one. All right, superheroes.
Batman, Superman, Green Lantern.
I was cutting it close. All right, Bennett, you ready for this one? Flowers.
Daisy, tulip, and rose.
Awesome. So that actually was our last one. So for a tiebreaker, I think we need a little dance-off up here.
Let's just play some rock, paper, scissors, man.
I'm thinking, are we thinking dance-off? I think we're thinking a dance-off. Okay. Joe, if we could have some music, I think, who wants to go first? Matt, I think you should go first. It's okay, it's okay. I think we should get some music here, Joe. Dance time. Ooh, okay, okay. Love to see it, love to see it. Do the worm. Oh, yeah. Love it. All right, Bennett. That's what you gotta be. Make some noise for Matt, you guys. That was actually pretty awesome. Bennett, the floor is yours. Bennett, what? Let's make some noise if we think Matt is our winner. Let's make some noise if we think Bennett is our winner. Wow, that was actually pretty close. I think we should rock, paper, scissors.
Why don't we do that?
I just wanted to see the dance off, you know? So I think best 2 out of 3. Best 2 out of 3. Ooh. Ooh. This is intense. Ooh. Hey, anything but rock, guys. Bennett is our winner. Let's make some noise for Bennett. Bennett, I have a Dairy Queen gift card for you. Oh, you don't want it? That's okay. I'll give it to Matt. No, you want it? Okay. Good job. Thank you, guys. Make some noise for our contestants. That was pretty awesome. Well, like I said earlier, this is actually one of my favorite games to play, and that's because we played it a couple years back during the best 2 weeks of the summer, and that was Boot Camp and Camp 75. And guys, if you are not registered yet, Boot Camp and Camp 75 registration closes in 1 week. You guys have 7 days left to register for the best 2 weeks of the summer. So take out your phones and register right now at camp75.org. In fact, on your way out, we have some invite cards for you guys, and it's got all the information of what Boot Camp and Camp 75 both are. You guys can pass those out, keep them for yourselves, just invite all your friends. It's gonna be so much fun. And before I pass it to Jordan, I do want to make one more quick announcement, and that is next week is senior night. And so for our seniors in the audience here today, we're going to invite you guys to come join us at North Point next week. And for all of our other grades, you guys will be meeting off-site with your small groups. So contact your small group leaders, make sure you guys know where you guys are meeting. But seniors will be here, and we will be celebrating you guys next week. Well, that is all I have for you guys. Please take a look at this video, and Jordan Geis will be up here for part 2 of our series, Forward.
All right, y'all, welcome back to Inside Out after a week off. This is really cool for me because I think every single time that I get on stage in Inside Out, I always talk about how grateful I am to be with you guys and how grateful I am that you would come and spend part of your weekend with us. I mean, you can literally do whatever you want with your time. You choose to be in Inside Out, and to me, that's incredible every single time. But for me, the past 4 months, I've gotten the privilege of serving as the associate pastor here at North Point, which means if you're new, anytime in the last 4 months, I may not have actually had the opportunity to meet you before. But prior than that, I have a 10-year history with Inside Out. It's where I got invited to when I wasn't going to church anywhere when I was 16 years old. It's where I've gotten to work for a while, and whenever I get to be a part of Inside Out, it feels like I'm coming home. Like, it just feels like I'm coming to hang with family. And so I'm so grateful to be a part of closing out Forward tonight, this series that we're in, because when Matt first came to me and Mel was talking to me about what it is that they wanted me to discuss tonight, I realized really quickly this is an area I have a lot of passion about, because we're talking about this concept of going forward, specifically when we're stuck somewhere, specifically when it's like there's no energy for it. You don't know what to do. Maybe it looks dark or cloudy ahead, maybe a little bit hopeless. You're just not excited. You've been trying for a long time, but you don't know what that looks like next. Have any of you guys ever had a dream where you fell down a lot, or you couldn't run, like you were trying to run but you can't run? Just a couple people and me. Okay, there's more hands. I used to have these all the time, especially when I was really young. There was this repeating one that I had where I was always running away from an evil Timon and Pumbaa from Lion King. I don't know why that happened, but it was I'm like, man, here the dream is again. And I could never run. That's an awful feeling. I don't know if you can relate with that or something, just, some other area of life. But when you're stuck, that feeling of I can't move forward, it can be really overwhelming to think about anything else. And specifically tonight, what we want to talk about is moving forward as it relates to your relationship with God. So I think there might be a lot of areas you could apply this to, maybe if you're not sure what you believe about God yet, or you're figuring that out. But specifically, if you are a Christian, I want to talk about what does it look like to move forward in your relationship with him. We're that time of year right now, we're like close to the end of the year, but it's not quite here yet. It's been a long time since our last camp, and even longer than normal because of the circumstances. And it can just feel like, man, I'm not growing like I'd want to be, or God doesn't feel like maybe he did at that first boot camp. And I want to talk about that kind of stuck feeling. And part of the reason that I was honestly so excited to have this conversation with you guys tonight when Matt and Mel first came to me is that honestly, if I was being real and I was trying to relate to this topic, I would say my relationship with God has never been more vibrant than it is today, which I would admittedly say that's kind of a weird thing to put on a screen. Like, is that an arrogant thing to say? Or like, why would you lead with that? The reason that I want to lead with that is because I first got invited to Inside Out 11 years ago. And over the course of the last 11 years have been full of stuck, of nothingness, of no emotion, of struggle, of times where I was like, have I already experienced the best? Like, was my first boot camp as good as it gets? That my life, was that as good as it gets for me? Like, isn't it just kind of more boring and more adult from here? And I'm just not as motivated as I was, and I don't feel as close to God. I don't know if all my friends are either. And there were all these periods of I don't know what it looks like to take a step forward over the last 11 years. And that's why I led with that first slide to say today. There have been all kinds of moments when I couldn't have looked to today to say a day was coming when God was closer in a capacity that I just didn't know was possible when I got my first invite. And so I say that to you today to say whether this is a season where you just feel like you and God are clicking or you're not even sure if he exists, I think, actually, I would just say, like, I know that God has his absolute best for you still in your future. That there is a level of connection with him that, like, we could try, but we honestly can't even dream of yet. That there are things that he wants you to know about you and to know about him in ways that he wants to use you that are still in the wildest imagination kind of category for us. And for me, that's not like a sad thing to be like, oh, I'm not there yet. That's like an exciting thing to say. That's all in front of us, but we have to get unstuck to get there. And so I was trying to think about, what do I want to say tonight, or what do I want to talk about? Like, for me, one of the things I'm learning right now that is helping me like get to that place that I'm talking about is I'm learning all about my identity right now. To understand what it really means to say who I am at my core is loved by God. Because over the last 11 years, and I still do it all the time today, but I found my identity in so many other things. And this was like crazy strong in like middle school. Probably that was the strongest for me. In middle school, maybe a little bit of high school. Middle school, I was so concerned with what people would think about me. I never wanted to walk into the hallway without my hair spiked, ever. Like, that was my biggest fear, that somebody would see me like that. And the way I spiked my hair was with hairspray. But I didn't want any of the football guys to know I used hairspray. So I would like hide it under my shirt in the bathroom. And I would try to make sure I was alone. And I would like spray my hairspray. And somebody would walk in, and I would just like walk around like I have nothing under my shirt, and then spray it again because I was so embarrassed what they might think or what they would say was something that silly, because I was so concerned what people thought about me. And that translated to all kinds of different areas. That was like my batting average. That was my GPA. That was who I was friends with, who I was dating. That was what college I was going to go to. I mean, my identity was so wrapped up in so many of those things. And so I thought about, man, that could be a cool topic to talk about today because I'm learning that. But even those kinds of things, when you say that, oh, loved by God, if you're in a stuck place, it just doesn't sound very helpful. You're like, okay, that's sweet. That should be on like maybe a billboard or something like that, or it should be on a Hallmark card. But that doesn't mean anything to me. I've heard that before. I've heard that I'm loved by God. I just don't feel that. I'm not experiencing that. Like, how do I get unstuck? So what I want to talk about tonight is something that's actually much simpler than that. I don't think it might, actually blow your mind. C.S. Lewis says we need to be reminded of things far more often than we need to learn something new. And so tonight might be more of a reminder for some of you, but I think this is the starting point to say, let's get unstuck collectively as we head into the summer together. And so what I want to share instead is I want to share something else I've been learning a lot about. You can tell me if any of you have been learning about this at the same time or not. Anybody else been learning about cryptocurrency recently, or is this just me? Okay, a couple hands. I didn't know if I'd be alone in this or not, if I'd be like a weird one, or if some of you guys are into this. Has anybody bought it? Can you do that? Is there like an age limit, or do your parents, can you do that? I don't know what the age. Okay, cool. Anyways, we can talk later. We should talk later about this because I'm interested. Anyways, the last 4 months, I've been learning a lot about this stuff, right? And still today, I would have a hard time telling you exactly what it is. Like, what exactly is cryptocurrency? I don't know exactly because Elon Musk, he was on Saturday Night Live last week. I don't know if y'all saw this or not. Elon Musk, like Tesla, SpaceX dude, he switches between Jeff Bezos as the richest man on planet Earth. Those two go back and forth. And so he hosted Saturday Night Live, and he is like one of the big celebrities like pushing cryptocurrency right now and trying to make it popular, and he can tweet, and people make or lose millions of dollars at a time right now. And what they kept asking him, these two guys that were interviewing him in the Saturday Night Live skit, they asked him about 10 times. They just said, what is it? What is Bitcoin? What is Dogecoin? And he would be like, well, it's a cryptocurrency. And they're like, okay, that's great. I understand it now. But what is it? Like, I can't touch it. What is it? And he would say, well, it's this decentralized exchange network and all this stuff. And they're like, okay, cool. But what is it? Because nobody could really understand what it is. And there are all these conversations happening right now about what is currency? Like, what gives something value? And without taking you to economics class, because I really don't want to do that, some of y'all maybe just had a final, you got a final coming up or something like that, you probably have this conversation at some point in time, right? Like a dollar bill, right? You can touch it, right? Like you can feel it. And at one point in time, you could actually trade this in for actual gold. Y'all know this. Like at one point in time, you could take this in and it'd be worth a certain amount of physical gold and you could just swap it. That's long since, gone. And now it's just based on the US government to say, well, people agree upon, if I give this to you, you'll provide something back to me, a good or a service back to me. That's kind of economics 101, just right there. Does anybody want $1? I have nothing else here. You can have $1. Thank you for coming Inside Out tonight. But you can like see it and hold it, and you realize it has value, right? But people have started to say, well, hey, like what else could have value if two people just agree on it? And it sparked all these kind of convos. I really don't want to go any more into crypto, but I do have a point with this. Because the bottom line of what I want to talk about tonight, the very simple thing I want to hone in on, is I want to talk about the currency of any relationship. If it's not something physical that you and I can hold, but we would agree, like we have a friendship, we have a relationship, what do we need to exchange? What do I need to give you, and what do you need to give me to decide, like we have a friendship, we have a relationship, what is that thing? Because when we apply this kind of idea to our relationship with God, we need to know, like, what even decides if I have a relationship with God? What do I need to spend more of? What do I need to start investing in my relationship with God for it to go to a new level, for it to go somewhere it hasn't been before? If we can get really clear on what that kind of unspoken, not physical thing is that we can spend, I think perhaps we can start taking steps in our relationship with God that maybe we've never taken before. And so I want to look at what is actually, most historians would say, the most famous speech ever. Like, number one. This is just so interesting. This is in the Bible, but it's the most famous speech ever. It's called the Sermon on the Mount, and it starts in Matthew 5. It takes place on this hillside. This is a real physical place that you can go to today. And even, this is kind of nerdy stuff. Maybe you don't care about it, but even the acoustics of this place, it was like so perfect that this is where he had this conversation, because where he could stand on the hill basically would echo on the rolling hills, and thousands of people could hear him project his voice without a microphone, right? He could just talk and crowds could hear, and it was amazing. And what it looks like it started, like he had a conversation with some of his closest friends, his disciples. It seems like it kind of started small, like him and his guys. And as he was talking, I don't know if there was a crowd that was following that kind of caught up, or if they were just like realized who it was and they started to flock to him. But by the end of these 2 chapters, he's speaking to thousands of people. And there are all kinds of things that you can practically apply in your life over these 2 chapters that you may have heard before and you didn't even know that's where it was from. You didn't even know that was a Bible thing. You didn't know that was a Jesus thing. You heard it in some law. You heard it from your parents. You heard it at school. And you didn't even know that that's where it started from. So many famous things he says. The whole section actually starts off this way. He starts off with these section of statements that start with blessed are. This word literally means happy. So he's like, hey guys, I want to have a conversation, and I'm going to start by telling you, here's how you are happy, joyful, content. That's what that word means. And he gives like these 8 statements of here's how you be happy. This is what you do. Like 30 verses later, after he says a whole bunch of smart, profound things, he says something like this that just shakes up the whole crowd. He says, but I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you. Have you ever heard that statement of love your enemies? This is where it started with, and that would have offended the crowd. And that would have made a lot of people angry. In fact, I don't think that's just a first century thing. If you have an enemy, Like if you have someone you're not good with, if you have somebody who started a rumor about you or did something to you, somebody that you don't like, somebody you have a lot of negative energy towards, this is an offensive statement for you to hear as well. And Jesus is like, I know in my economy of how we treat people and how we love people, we flip it upside down. It is counter-cultural, but it's practical. This is what you do. This is where we get this statement on judgment. When you hear people kind of misquote this sometimes, when you talk about this plank idea, he says, first, take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Stop blaming, stop pointing, stop spreading rumors, stop pointing the finger. You have a plank in your own eye. You can't even see clear because you are literally pointing out in other people the things that you can't get yourself. And he's like, stop that. There are so many things. We could spend hours and hours on all of this, but there are so many things that are just practical. And after 2 chapters of stuff, 2 chapters of incredibly insightful things that was shaking up the whole crowd and drawing thousands of people to him, he gives this conclusion. He gives simply this metaphor, actually. He says, hey, if you miss nothing else, I just want you to remember this one thing. And he says at the end of this speech, anyone who listens to my teaching, all these things, I don't know how many hours they were there. I don't know if it took days. I don't know how long they were there. Anyone who listens to my teaching and follows it is wise, like a person who builds his house on a solid rock. Though the rain comes in torrents and the floodwaters rise and the winds beat against that house, it won't collapse because it is built on bedrock. It is well built with good materials strategically over time. And no matter what is thrown at it, it is not coming down. But anyone who listens or anyone who hears my teaching and doesn't obey it is foolish, like a person who builds a house on sand. When the rains and floods come and the winds beat against that house, it will collapse with a mighty crash. Life is going to happen. Disappointments are going to come. Things out of our control are going to happen to us. Things that we don't like, things that maybe don't feel good, or maybe we just get distracted. And it's going to come crashing down if it's not well built on a solid foundation. After all this, it says the crowds were literally amazed. He says, when Jesus had finished saying these things, the crowds were amazed at his teaching. This was so new to them. They had not experienced this before. But I want to pause and I want to talk about this for a second because, I mean, even if you look at the last 18 months, not to dwell on 2020 once again, but you look at the last 18 months of our life, there's so much that has happened that is out of our control. So much that did not go the way that we wanted it to go. And some of us, if we're being honest, and I don't mean this in a shaming way, I'm not doing the whole plank at my own eye thing, but I mean, some of you would look at the last 18 months and you perhaps have had the realization, and maybe it's even scared you a little bit to say, maybe my house wasn't that well built. Maybe when things didn't go that great, I kind of disconnected from God. I went the other way. I did not prioritize him. And again, I'm not like coming down on you with that. That's just interesting to pay attention to because this is exactly what Jesus is speaking to. I have talked to others of you that you would have said the exact opposite. Say, yeah, that last 18 months were brutal. And at the same time, I actually feel like I'm closer to God than I've ever been. Because with all these disappointments, I just kept trusting him, and I've never really had to trust him with something that hard before. And I mean, I had the whole world to pray for. I had all kinds of people that I could reach out to, encourage, and help and love. I had more time to prioritize him than I've ever had before. And you built further on that foundation. It is times like these where you'll see that. It is transitions. There are classes that have gone before you, and I promise you, I'm not thinking of anybody, I'm not calling anybody, but there are classes that have gone before you that you have watched. And you have seen some people go and continue to build on that foundation and do incredible things with their influence in college and continue to love people well. Not perfect, I'm not talking about perfect behavior, but I mean, continue to pursue that. And you've seen some people just say, I'm going to do what I want, when I want, with whom I want. I'm not going to think about the consequences or the regrets or what that could be. This conversation is so important because it's the foundational to say, which direction are we going to go? And there are so many different types of houses you can build on sand. Maybe you would relate for some of these. I mean, we could probably just build a huge long list. I think if you build your faith when it's convenient, that's a house that's built on sand, right? Like, I'm just going to prioritize my faith when I have time, when it's easy, when I have the energy, when it sounds good, when I don't have to get up early, right? If I'm just going to pursue it when it's convenient, that is going to collapse over time. That's where we're headed. If you build a faith that, you only do it when God does what I want, like only when he answers my prayers, only when everybody is happy and healthy, around me, only when I get what I want, only when I make the team, when I get into the school. That is a foundation that is going to collapse because Jesus actually promises in this world we will have trouble. If you just do it when it's popular, like nobody really gives you that hard of a time, it doesn't really cost you anything. You definitely don't got to break up with anybody for it. You know, it's like only my friends are going to camp. Like if you only do it when it's popular, over time, that is going to collapse. If you pursue faith only when it fits what you already believe, meaning I have some views about the world. This is kind of the morals. This is what I think is good. This is what I think is right. And so I'm going to find the Bible verses that support that. And I'm going to ignore the ones that make me uncomfortable and I just don't like. Over time, you will eventually walk away. Versus taking the opposite approach to say, God, like, I'm an ant. I'm a tiny little human. Like, God, you know what is good. You know what is true. And I'm going to do everything I can to try to figure that out. I'm going to start top down, not bottom up. I'm not going to inform you what's right. You are God. And that's our posture. Or a faith that's just built on others, right? To say, I only become because of that one person. I'm only staying because of that one person. I'm only because, my mom or dad made me. Only because of that coach. Or maybe it's like a celebrity, celebrity culture, or this is really sad. A lot of times like celebrity pastors, and they do something bad or they do something dumb, and you're like, oh, why'd that happen? And, people walk away from the church. Well, that's always so interesting to me because I'm like, hey, our faith isn't in that person. Our faith is in something much more solid than that. I hope, right? There's a lot of things. And again, this is just meant to be helpful. Not like a, hey, don't do this. This is just meant to be helpful to try to think about some things that we might do and build our house on. But if you want to, or you're curious, you're like, how do I, or you want to keep pursuing building your house on rock, it's actually a little simpler. Not easy. It's very demanding, but it's simpler. It's more clear. Because there's one foundation, like there's one material that we get to choose and say, I pick that one, that's what I want to build my house on, if you want to build your house on rock. And that option is Jesus. It's the gospel. It's who he says you are. It's trusting that what he has done is already enough for your sin, that you're good, not because of anything you have done, but because of what he has already done for you. And just deciding, you know what, every day of my life, I'm going to do what I can to love people in light of the way that my Heavenly Father has already loved me. I'm going to pursue that. I'm going to pursue specifically him, a relationship, the person of Jesus. The reason I share this section or this parable is because it points to exactly the one thing that I said validates a relationship. The currency of any relationship is trust. And Jesus is like, you can stand there and think this is amazing and this is the best speech the world has ever heard because it is. He's like, I know I'm good and all that kind of stuff, but look, in your amazement, that doesn't really mean anything to me. Are you going to go do something with it? Are you just going to go on with your normal lives like always? What he wanted was not their amazement. It wasn't their applause. It wasn't their likes. What he wanted was them to trust him, trust his words, trust what he said. And the way that we have a relationship is if you spend some of that currency, you invest some of it, you take a step in trust, and you're like, I don't even know if I like it. I don't know how I feel about that, but Jesus, I'm going to take a step and I'm going to trust you. And what you probably already know, and you don't need me to tell you, but building a house doesn't happen overnight. Right, we're actually trying to build our next North Point house right now. We're trying to build our future building, our future facility, and it has been delayed and delayed and delayed by COVID. It's a tough time to try to build a building. We're going to be in it eventually. We know it's a process, but it takes time, incredible attention to detail. It takes care. There's not something where you can just go home tonight and be like, oh, I checked the box. I'm good. Me and God, we're fine now. This is a decision to build that foundation over the course of a lifetime. So the bottom line, the kind of main point, the one ask I'm asking you guys tonight is if you want to move forward, whether you feel very stuck or just a little stuck, or there's one area where you're stuck, my ask is in order to move forward, would you take a step in trust? Would you take whatever that next step is in front of you? And that's why I said, I don't think you need me to say anything profound. I think you probably already know at least one area where you could take that kind of a step. I think that word trust is so important to clarify. Jesus was equating it's what you do, right? It's action-oriented. I'm not saying it's a feeling. I'm not saying wait for the feeling to come around, like wait when you're ready emotionally to do it. That's not what I'm saying. This really has to do with our definition of faith that we'll use a lot of times here in Inside Out. Faith, the definition I really love is increased trust meaning I'm inviting Jesus into more areas of my life or new areas of life, and it's authenticated. You can tell it's real, it's validated by increased love for God, yourself, and others. As I trust Jesus with more areas of my life, I naturally love myself better, I love other people better, and I love my Heavenly Father better as well. Which means, implication, if we're trying to move forward, we have to understand faith is not a feeling, right? The feeling is a byproduct. That I feel close to God, which is wonderful. There's a component that is emotional. I'm not saying that's bad, but that comes after. It's not first. I just got to spend the last week with Emily, and this was really cool. So Emily is a counselor now. That's my wife, Emily, if I haven't met you before. But Emily is a counselor, and her organization wanted to send her on this retreat, this marriage retreat type thing, so that she could lead them in the future. And so they sent her as an attendee. I'm the only spouse she has, so I got to go with her, which is really cool. And we went to the Chick-fil-A Retreat Center. It's near Atlanta. It was beautiful, and we spent the week there. And by the end of the week, it was like her and I, it was like all the corny stuff. Like it was silly, it was like googly eye, it was like we're thinking like we were when it felt like it was prom again, it felt like when I married her, it felt like, when I asked her to marry me. It was like all those kinds of things. The emotion were just high. We're sitting there like holding hands at dinner, and you're like, cutting with one hand. You're like, what are we even doing right now? But I don't want to let go of your hand. Like it's these silly, cheesy, corny stuff, right? But what the counselors didn't do is they didn't say, sit in a chair, and just don't move till you feel different. Like that's exercise number one. Just stare at each other and try really hard to feel better about each other. Right? That wasn't step one. Step one was we had to extend a lot of trust to each other again and again and again over the course of the weekend. Hey, here's some vulnerable things. Here's some things that they're scary for me to share. These are some of the fears of mine. These are some of the things I need to own and apologize to you for. These are some of the things I need to forgive you for. These are some real conversations, and the more I extend that trust and I invest that trust, and the more she reciprocates it and extends it back to me, there's this connection that is formed, which I think is really important to clarify. We're married. I'm not saying to do this like with your boyfriend, girlfriend, okay? There's a different analogy than that, okay? I'm just trying to clarify that. But as we extend that trust, there's this connection that is formed, and the emotion comes after. The feeling comes after. As you extend that trust to your Heavenly Father, the feeling often comes as a result. That's why when you think about boot camp, it's not an accident. There's that feeling associated with boot camp. The feeling isn't waiting there for us to just walk in the room and experience. You do so many things, so many actions out of your comfort zone, so many things with other people, so many things living for something bigger than you. We're singing all these songs. We're learning all these things. We're doing all these experiences. You're getting up earlier than you normally do, which is actually a good thing because you're out of your comfort zone. There's all of this stuff that's happening. And as a result, there is this incredible feeling that results that if you've been there, you know what I'm talking about. Maybe one of the greatest steps of trust for you is you've been nervous about signing up and you just need to make it happen. Like you just need to sign up. Or maybe a step in trust for you is to invite somebody to come with you and say you have to because you know what's hanging in the balance for them. We've got 1 week left in the registration deadline. Maybe that's your practical step for you. But I just want to leave you guys tonight with 2 basic questions that I think you'll already know the answer to for you as we head into our small groups. I want to ask you one, is there anything that you already know? You already know, I don't even need to give you the examples, that you already know is actively eroding your foundation? You're like, I know when I look at that, it's cutting away my foundation. I know that relationship. I know that person, like I should not keep going back to them. I know that habit. I know when I drink that. I know when I smoke that. I know I don't feel like closer to God in that moment. And you're trying to, it's one of those I want my cake and eat it too type scenarios, but like you already know, you don't need me to tell you that. It's not building a stronger foundation for you. Is there anything that comes to mind? A lack of boundaries with somebody or something that is eroding? Or is there something you can add to your foundation? Is there something, say, I'm going to invest in new material. I'm going to build it stronger. I'm going to build it wider. There's this habit that I've wanted to add that I know I should prioritize. I have no more excuses. I need to start it. Is there something that you can add to build your foundation stronger? Again, you don't need a whole lot of examples from me. I'm guessing you already know what that may be. My only encouragement to you is that if you're going to move forward in a specific area, in a small area, in a big area, if you're going to move forward, you have to take a step in trust. That feeling of closeness, the emotion, all of that will trail after. I'd love to pray for our time in small groups today before we head to this. Father, this is the definition of one of those easier said than done type of messages. God, I want to recognize for some of us, we've been trying some of these things. There's some things we've been trying to stop and say no to. We've been trying to add some things, and we get tired. A lot of that is probably because we're trying it on our own and not inviting you into it. But God, this is not easy. So one, would you make it so clear in our hearts, the thing we've got to get intentional about, either removing or adding to our foundation. We just can't wait another day. God, it's so worth it to fight for what's on the other side. Would you make that clear for us, and then would you give us the strength to do it? We don't have the strength on our own. This is not a willpower thing. We can't just figure it out. God, we need you. We need you. We need the people around us. We need our small groups. We need our small group leaders. But ultimately, God, we're dreaming of a day that even when the storms come, we stand firm on the foundation that is your son, Jesus. And we're dreaming of all that you have in store for us as we pursue that dream. Father, we love you. We need you. It's in Jesus' name that we pray. Amen. Ready, break. Thank you guys again for hanging. Y'all are good to head to your small groups.